In the previous episode of this two-part series, we discussed a build focused on healing and gunplay because one of the biggest complaints I've seen with the Arc subclass is the lack of healing, unless we're punching something. After reading through the comments, I realized just how diverse everyone is when it comes to favorite exotics and playstyles. This inspired me to create a build that's more of a set and forget, focusing on healing, grenades, and melees, but also capable of working with a wide variety of exotics while being easy to use. Sounds odd, right? It turned out to be a lot of fun and very powerful. Hello my fellow weirdos, how are you today? One of the great things about us Titans is our grenade abilities. They've always been top tier, but with the Arc rework, we're now playing in a whole different league because we have access to storm grenades. On their own, they're good, but when combined with the Spark of Magnitude fragment and the Touch of Thunder aspect, they become godlike, and since they're so powerful, that's what we're going to focus the build around. Spark of Magnitude extends the duration of the Storm Grenade, and Touch of Thunder causes our Storm Grenade to create a roaming cloud after the initial detonation that continuously tracks and damages enemies around it. This aspect, fragment, and grenade combination are strong enough to wipe out whole rooms and mini-bosses. I'm sure you've seen videos about it, but the key thing to take away from it is the continuous roaming damage. When paired with the Charged Light mod, Heal Thyself, which heals us for 25% of our total health upon getting a grenade kill, we now have a roaming grenade that does all the dirty work for us while healing at the same time when it gets a kill. And I don't just mean when we first throw the grenade. As it's traveling around killing, it'll continue to heal us as long as we have the stacks of Charged Light to consume. So how do we create a build that's basic enough to fit everyone's playstyle while still maintaining stacks of Charged Light and fast grenade cooldowns for the healing? Well, it's a lot easier than I thought. One of the fastest ways to get our grenades back without any exotics is through a high discipline stat, Elemental Wells, and Ionic Traces. We receive 10% to all abilities when picking up Arc Wells, and 12.5% from Ionic Traces, so we need to focus our fragments and mods around those two. A guaranteed way to get Ionic Traces from our Storm Grenade is through the fragments Spark of Shock and Ions. These two jolt targets affected by grenades, chaining to nearby enemies, and when they die, release an Ionic Trace. But there is a 10-second cooldown on this version of the traces, which is why we want to utilize Elemental Wells as much as possible. Since we will be throwing a lot of grenades and we need to stay charged with light, two Elemental Well mods that flow perfectly with this are Elemental Ordnance and Elemental Charge. Upon getting a grenade kill, Elemental Ordnance drops an Arc Well, and when we pick the well up, we now have 2 stacks of Charged Light from Elemental Charge. These two were like almost meant for this build. Unfortunately, one well and Ionic Trace from our grenade just isn't enough to give us our grenades back fast, which is where the second aspect, Knockout, and the next mod, Melee Wellmaker, play into this. Knockout not only gives us a 4th fragment slot to equip Spark of Resistance for more survivability, but it also gives us the ability to heal from melee kills in between grenade cooldowns, and when paired with Melee Wellmaker, we can drop more Arc Wells for Charged Light stacks and extra grenade energy, including the amplified Knockout melee when we don't have a charged melee. But we're not done yet. We've already covered the grenade, aspects, fragments, and 4 mods. This leaves us with one major mod, but it's somewhat reliant on what exotic you choose. As a base, I went with Bountiful Wells to drop extra wells from grenade and melee kills, but if you're an ability spamming Heart of Inmost Light or Insurmountable Skullfort and Thunderclap player, I'd recommend Supercharge for the extra Charged Light stacks, or a second Heal Thyself since they're stackable, and keeping a steady flow of Elemental Wells won't really be a problem for you. If you're more into exotics like Caress of the Falling Star or Peregrine Greaves for extra super or melee damage, then I'd say stick with Bountiful Wells to compensate for the lack of fast ability energy. Our mileage will vary depending on what exotic we choose. If you really want to make the most of the build, then I'd recommend the Heart of Inmost Light or the Insurmountable Skullfort. We all know these are some of the Titan's best tools. On a side note, which I thought was worth mentioning, I did test this build out with the Firepower mod for more grenade energy, but the cons outweighed the pros for me because it takes away a stack of Charged Light and it only gives 5% more energy per copy over just using an Elemental Well. I couldn't justify eating the possible healing stacks for an extra 5% of grenade energy. For some bonus super and grenade energy, two great minor mods to pair with this are Ashes to Assets on the helmet for astronomical amounts of super energy from all the grenade kills, and the artifact mod Lightning Strikes Twice to boost the recharge rate of our grenades after using our grenade. If you're playing an activity that doesn't require champion mods, or maybe you just need one, a solid mod for the arms is Impact Induction to reduce grenade cooldowns when causing melee damage. One of the best parts about this build, being so simple or basic, is that it gives us the freedom to play around with whatever weapons we want. For this build in particular, I've been using a lot of Demolitionist or Volt Shot for the extra grenade energy, but of course, you're free to use whatever you'd like. This isn't some game-breaking build, but when it comes to ease of use, survivability, and just flat out being fun to watch our grenade wipe out whole villages, it doesn't get any better. If you found this video helpful, a like would be awesome. But more importantly, and I'm serious about this part, be true to yourself, be good to one another, and have a fantastic day. Thank you!
I'll fucking take smoke, I'ma poke a hole through you, choking's overdue. Come at me and you won't get any older, dude, crack your holder too. Heating up inside of me, blood so violently, thanks for trying me. Now it's finally time to see how